All hail internet, Darth here. I hope you are all having a great day. Today's video is going to be very different. As many of you already know, Diablo 4 Season 9 has been released for a few days already. I did spend a few hours in the game since release, and I wanted to have an open discussion about the state of the game. There's several things that's been bugging me for a few months now. I was still hopeful that those things would go away with time, with updates, with new seasons. And there's still a lot of things that are still there since basically almost a year now. I really wanted to address a few things. As you can see here, I did put up a list of things I wanted to address just so I don't forget anything during this conversation. And this is going to be targeted towards the Diablo team, obviously. So most of the things I want to say here hopefully will be heard by the team, maybe not, or maybe it's going to be heard by someone who does have contacts with the team or someone who has way more impact than I do to get the message through, right? So the first thing I noticed when I logged into the game when the season released is the horrendous lag that was happening in town, first of all. So the first thing that happened, I logged into town. I did skip the campaign, obviously, because everybody's doing it. And I wanted to test the seasonal mechanics right away. And the lag was horrendous. Like, to be completely fair, it made the game almost unplayable. The first 3 minutes that I did log in, I almost did quit the game just because of the lag. And the lag did follow even in the world. The thing is, since the game is mainly to be kind of like an MMO-ish thing, they do make the online connection mandatory. However, there is a few things that are bugging me about the always online thing in those games. First of all, obviously, is the lag, and there shouldn't be any lag. So I would hope that they would implement the offline mode so that those lags won't happen. But the other thing why I would like the offline mode and why I think the online only mode in those kind of games are not very good is, if you recall correctly, in the world of Diablo, if you remember the lore, the reason why the world is such in a poor state and such in a state of despair and a state of, dread and like basically oppression is because the demons are extremely powerful and extremely dangerous, right? So when the chaos appear and when danger is on the horizon, there's basically nothing anyone can do. And then there is that hero, that party of heroes that appear, right, to save the day. If you compare to previous entries, your character was basically the only one that could do something about it, right? Like, yes, of course, there were resistance around the world and people were fighting them, but basically everybody was dying, right? And that added the sense of, if you die, the world is doomed. And this is a feeling I am not having at all with the game, because if you die, it doesn't matter, because there's 50 other players that are like as powerful or more powerful than you are, and it doesn't really matter if you die or not. Your presence in the world has no impact whatsoever, because there is so many players around with all those powers. The online mode actually breaks the immersion and breaks that feeling of oppression, that feeling of, you need to survive, you need to kill them all, you need to be able to do something, because if you don't, the world is doomed. And this is not really happening anymore. I don't have that sense of making a difference in the world. So basically, everything I just said came out when I just, realized there was so much lag and it was basically affecting my gameplay. So, I had all the thought process. Second of all, the leveling. Okay. I realized that as soon as I left the town to go into the world and kill stuff, not only when you start the game, you already have 12 points to put in if you found all the statues of Lilith, whatever. You don't start at level 1. You start basically at level 13. So it makes the early game extremely trivial. Not only this, but also I basically just got out of town, killed 3 monsters, and I leveled up already. 3 monsters. And also, not only I leveled up very quickly because it takes a very, very, very limited amount of monsters for you to level up. There was so many players around the town I was. I did spawn in Serigar, obviously, that I basically leveled up to level 10 under 2 minutes. Because not only the monsters you kill are contributing to your level ups, also everybody around you that are close enough to be considered in your party does contribute to your experience gain and your level ups as well. So I realized that, like, not under 2 minutes, I already had 10 points to put in my character after I did put already 12 points in my character. So basically, under 2 minutes, I already put in 24 points. And I feel like when you level up in an ARPG, every point that you put in should make a difference, and you should be excited at each level up. I don't get that feeling at all. So every time I level up, I just go, oh, okay, I'm going to put the points at some point. And I usually realize that I have points to put in after a few level ups each time. So I always have several points to put in my character every time I realize I have to level up. I never feel that any level ups does make a difference. And that is very, very annoying to me. I decided to ditch the season altogether. And I did go to the campaign, and I decided to do the campaign again. And when I did play the campaign, I realized that with the same amount of time, roughly half an hour, I was already at level 17, so almost level 20 under the half an hour in the season. I was level 8 during the campaign. And I realized that every piece of gear, even though it was white, every level ups I got, I was actually excited to get a piece of gear. I was actually excited to put a point in my character because I felt with the scaling and with the progression in the campaign, that each point I put in the character was relevant. Even though I still had those 12 points to put in right away. I do feel that the progression of the game shouldn't be ported to other characters. I still feel like the Paragon levels, the skill points that you pile up with the Statues of Lilith shouldn't exist in the game. I feel like in the early days of the game, it did feel like a good choice, but now in retrospective, like 2 years later, I realized that everything they did implement to make the game easier for players was actually basically them shooting themselves in the foot. Because as attractive as it sounds, it does break the experience because you're not getting that dopamine hit that comes with every level ups, with every piece of gear that you find. Basically, that's how I feel about it. The other thing with the progression that I don't really like is the rune words and the tempering, and basically everything that is made available very early on in the game. I will come back to the tempering later because there's still issues with the tempering that I want to address, but the tempering as a whole, to be able to add extremely powerful effects to your items early on, and also getting the rune words early on, is basically, it's making the game so trivial. It is challenging for the first, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes. And as soon as you find things that makes your build a little bit stronger, it doesn't make your build a little bit stronger. It makes your build so OP that everything melts all the time. I found my rune word under 20 minutes. I did find the Sorcerer's Meteorites, and basically every time I attack, the whole screen melts, the bosses melt. The fight with Nerel's mother, what I actually liked when they did the Loot Reborn and the new itemization, when they shrunk all the numbers, what I liked about that battle was that it was very challenging, but it was not punishing. So it felt kind of like basically Path of Exile 2. I had the same kind of feeling with this fight, and when I found my rune word, I just went to the fight, and I was playing hard. I was playing the highest difficulty available early on because I didn't finish the campaign yet, because it's not, campaign cleared, and basically the whole fight melted under my rune words. So for me, the rune word and the tempering shouldn't be available right off the bat. The rune words should be made available only when you reach Nahantu, and there should be a quest to make you learn how to use those rune words, because the rune words, like as I understand from the lore, is an old language, and I feel it would make sense with the progression that you learn how to use them once you reach Nahantu, and someone in Kurast could teach you how to use them, and then to add them to your build. I feel like having them available right off the bat makes the game extremely easy, and it's just like basically killing the fun for me. Same thing for the tempering. There's a few effects with the tempering that you find early on, and when you put them to your gear, basically your gear becomes OP. Like with the lucky hit that did, like, I don't know, like every time you hit, it does like 100 shadow damage, and you can put them on like, I usually play, you know, warrior and barbarians in games, and you know, since I have like 4 weapons, basically if I get one lucky hit, everything dies like instantly. It's like that. There's no fun in that. I don't feel it's adding to the experience. I just feel it's just making the game way too easy. One other thing that I want to address, it is not in the list, but I just, you know, I just remembered that I wanted to talk about this, is the Lair bosses and the Nightmare Dungeons. Yes, they did change the Nightmare Dungeon mechanics for this season, and I think it's a good improvement. I do agree, it is way more fun than it was. But there's one more thing that makes it still an issue for me. Let's start with the Nightmare Dungeons, okay? The fact that you're using keys. The amount of items that you need to interact with the activities is kind of ridiculous, and I would suggest it's probably not the best way of fixing it, but I feel it's way more a fix than just a band-aid. The Nightmare Dungeons, in my opinion, when you start a new season, should be made available on rotation with already all the dungeons in the pool. But to unlock a Nightmare Dungeon, you would need to clear the basic one first. So not only it would be an incentive for players to actually do the actual dungeon, because most players won't beat a dungeon if the power at the end as a reward is not interesting to them. But if you have another incentive to clear it, adding that dungeon in the rotation pool to become nightmarish, it would make people want to clear those dungeons. And the more dungeons you clear, the more chances you have for them to become nightmarish, and they would be like on rotation, like the whispered dungeons. Since it's always on a rotation and all the dungeons are already in the pool, when you only have one dungeon unlocked, the chances for it to become nightmarish would be very limited. But the more you clear them, the more chances you have for them to become nightmarish, and you know, like it would just progressively escalate to be more and more nightmarish with the, you know, with the system. It would actually make sense. The other thing are the Lair bosses. I wish the seasonal quests that make you go and reach for that boss would still be in the game as a core mechanic. And let me explain you why. If you're a new player and you complete the game, and now you can go and beat Varshan. Who the hell is Varshan? Why is there body parts that I need to collect to summon him? Why is he under the Tree of Whispers? Why is he whatever? Why is he there? He's not in the campaign, so we've not been introduced to him during the campaign. If you skip season 1 because you're a new player, you're basically screwed because you don't know who it is. Same thing with Zier, same thing with like basically almost all bosses except for Duriel and Andariel. And also Duriel and Andariel, I don't even know why the fight mechanics for both of them are different from the campaign. I feel like the campaign fights were way more interesting, especially Andariel. The Andariel fight is so fun, and it's so different for the Lair boss version of it, and it's very punishing, and it's not that fun. It's not. I don't think it's a fun fight. I think just doing this as a whole would actually improve the experience, and would improve also the introduction of those bosses and make new players want to actually interact with them. And I wouldn't mind to do like a very quick, I don't know, like under an hour quest to unlock that boss, and now I can go and fight the boss, right? I also would feel like those bosses should be under either strongholds or behind a unique dungeon that you need to clear to beat the boss, because to be completely fair, at first having to fight the boss with materials seemed like a good idea, but like several months, several seasons later, having to collect materials all the time. I think they fixed it. I didn't even like bother to interact with them. Now I think you need a key to unlock the boss or whatever. Even this, like it's like even if you replace materials with keys, just don't do this. Just give us a dungeon to clear so we can actually fight the boss. It would slow down the amount of times you can beat the boss, yes, but at the same time, it would make the drops way more fun to have, since you have to actually, you know, work for those items. So that's my take on the dungeons and the Lair bosses. Now with the seasonal quest, Obviously, the seasonal quest is just basically a repaint of the other quests that we had in the previous seasons. It is still kill stuff, get points, kill stuff, get points, go to the board, get rewards. You get rewards, you get XP for everything. You get XP for talking to someone, you get XP for opening a box, you get XP for like it is just ridiculous. Like I don't have fun anymore doing this, and especially since the like the past few seasons, the quest was so similar all the time. It's just kill stuff, get points, kill stuff, get points. So basically, I just don't want to do it anymore. It's just it's getting old. For the Horadric Strongrooms, I did. I did try several of them. I don't know, maybe like 12 of them. And there's a few things that I noticed. The first thing I noticed is that every single strong room is exactly the same. So there is no variation. No matter what Nightmare Dungeon you're doing, it's going to be the exact same strong room each time. The second thing I noticed is like there's no clear indication of what the mechanic of the room itself is. There's no clear indication on any strategies you could use or how to optimize this. There's just a timer. You kill stuff as quick as possible. You reach the other statues to fill up the bar, but there's still no clear indication what that actual bar does. I did reach level 1 up to level, I don't know, I think it was like level 6 or 7 on the bar. I did try to fill it up as much as possible. The boss shows up, I kill the boss, and I don't really feel there's any difference between the first level to the last level, like either for the rewards or for the boss itself. So I still feel it's kind of like very unclear what the objective is and how to optimize stuff, how to address, how to approach this, like with different strategies or whatever. From what I've heard, as soon as you get a character that can melt everything, basically you just clear the room and there's no clear indication of what the difference is. Also with the Boon and Bane, with the 3 choices, every single time you reach the room, it's basically the Infernal Hordes again. It's the exact same mechanic. There was a few dungeons last season as well that was like this. The other season prior with the Witch powers also was exactly the same thing. I just feel they are just taking the same mechanic and repainting it in a different scenery for some reason. I don't know why they're doing this. It has no feeling of novelty, no feeling of improvement, no feeling of innovation. I don't require novelty and innovation at each crossroad or whatever. I just feel like you cannot make me believe that it's something new if it is not. And that's what my problem is like they are acting and they are addressing things like they are novelties when they are not, and that's very annoying to me. The other point I want to address is obviously the bugs. There's several bugs that I did report every single season since the PTRs are a thing. Many of them are still there and they are not improving. The most blatant example that I'm going to give you is the same example I'm using every single season just because it's the easiest to find and it's probably one of the easiest to fix, and it's never been fixed. Is the bug with the cat. Since they released the cat as a mount for the DLC, there's a big bug with the cat that when you're using mouse movement, the cat comes to a complete halt before it starts to sprint, and this is not happening with the keyboard movement or the controller. And I don't understand why it does this. It doesn't do it with the horse, only with the cat. And I did report this several times, and it's never been fixed. And it's kind of weird to me because the mouse movement is basically the OG way of moving your characters in those games. And it's been the OG way of doing it in Diablo specifically. I don't know why the mouse movement would have bugs that shouldn't happen in the first place just because of this. So I think they are basically putting resources in places that they shouldn't, and it is not improving the experience for the players. Now, getting back to tempering, like I said earlier, I wanted to get back to this because this is a different topic than just the powers being OP. The tempering as a whole is not a bad idea. However, I do feel like the execution of it is extremely poor. and very bad, and let me explain you why. If I use as an example the crafting in PoE2, all right, like people are complaining that the crafting in PoE2 is very rudimentary and not complete, which I agree. However, there is still something very interesting going on in PoE2 compared to the tempering in Diablo 4. If you have, example, like a yellow item in PoE2 and you want to add affixes, right, you will use exalted orbs on your item, and it's going to add an affix randomly. So yes, it is RNG, and every ARPGs are bound to RNG, obviously, because like most of the things you do is always you basically slot machines all the time for the items, for the affixes, for basically everything you're doing in the game, for the gold that's dropping. Everything is always like a slot machine. However, the issue with the tempering compared to like I will say the exalted orbs in PoE is, at first, the amount of affixes you can add to your item. In PoE2, you can add up to, I think it's up to 7 affixes. So if you don't roll something that you want on your item, there's still more chances to get something that you want. So the chances to get something useful for your build is still there. But also, since the RNG with the exalted orbs are basically, you can roll anything that can be related to your item, the chances for the affix to be basically useful for basically anything you want is still pretty high. The issue with the tempering is like, even though they did narrow down the amount of affixes you can roll to make sure that you roll something you would want on your item, it is still very bad because, as an example, if you want to roll thorns on your warrior or necro, whatever the class you are, right, and you keep rolling the barrier, but you are not a barrier build, basically that specific affix to be rolled on your item is useless. It's a waste of a roll. And I realized that if you roll the barrier 12 times in a row and you like basically go through all your scrolls of restoration, and your item is bricked with the freaking barrier, it is so frustrating that you basically hate the system altogether. I never had that feeling with any rolls in Path of Exile 2 with the Exalts. I never had that feeling. Even though the roll was not something I actually wanted, I could have found a use for that affix, and if not, there was still more ways to basically re-roll this, add more affixes, use a chaos orb to reroll the affixes. Like if the actual item sucks now because I did add many affixes that don't do anything to my build, I could use a chaos to reroll things and still have chances to have way more good affixes on my item than before. There's like so many workarounds that issue to make your item still useful, and it is not the case with Diablo, and that's why the tempering feels extremely bad. Because it's even worse to know what you can get and never getting it than never knowing what you're going to get and get something that is still kind of useful, even though it's not something that you would actually want for your build, right? I think that's why the tempering should be reworked. And to be fair, the masterworking is a way better crafting system, because usually when you masterwork an item, you already got all those affixes that you would want for your build or your item before you do masterwork. So even though the boosted stat after when you upgraded like 4 times each time, like even though it's not the exact affix you would want to be boosted, it is still gonna boost something pretty useful to you anyways, so it's not a big deal. I feel like the masterworking is not a frustrating system compared to the tempering, just because of the mercenaries. The mercenary system in Diablo 4 it's not a bad one per se. I just feel it is very, very limited. Even though they added skills for your mercenary or whatever, I just feel like the mercenary and the backup mercenary only spawning when you trigger a certain skill is probably not the most optimal way of doing it. I wish the mercenaries was way more like in Diablo 2 and like on Path of Exile, the new expansion. The way the mercenaries were made is extremely efficient. It is very simple. You can change their gear. There's so many things you can do with the mercenary, which actually improves the experience as a whole. But I feel like in Diablo 4, the mercenaries feel like they are skills instead of being basically someone that follows you around and helps you. And I feel that there's a lot of things that could be improved on this. And also, like, to be completely honest, the little demon guy, I don't feel that is a good mercenary character. That is a personal opinion, but I feel like that character is way too cartoonish and it just doesn't make sense in the lore and in the... It just doesn't make sense that that's a mercenary as a whole. Mercenaries are usually militia and soldiers that are there for hire. I feel like the mercenaries in Diablo 4 are basically just weird characters that I don't know. I just feel they don't make sense in the lore of the game, and I wish the mercenaries were different. Another point that I wanted to address also is the skill tree synergies and the Paragon board as a whole. I feel like the skill tree is so simple and so basic. It's basically making the leveling experience less of an exploration, less of an adventure. You cannot try new things, you cannot explore that much, and you know, the power fantasy and the theory crafting is very limited because of it. What happened in the past, I will give Diablo 2 as an example again. When you used the Frozen Orb, when the Frozen Orb explodes, it becomes ice spikes. And each ice spikes are basically an actual skill in the skill tree. And the damage of those ice spikes were influenced by the amount of points you did put in each of those skills, either the Frozen Orb and the ice spikes, which is not the case in Diablo 4. If you have Fireball, every point you put in the Firebolt, like the first, you know, the fire skill you have at first, doesn't do anything to the Fireball. It doesn't do anything to the Hydras. It doesn't do anything to the Inferno, the ultimate skill, whatever. There is no real actual point in putting more points in a skill you barely use, because it's not going to impact the other skills, but it should. If you are more proficient in fire skills, all your fire skills should be more effective. I feel like this is a thing that is very limiting in the skill tree. And the other thing that I feel could be improved on is also the passives, because the active skills and the passives are on the exact same tree. And the amount of passives that are making a real difference is so limited that they're basically almost useless. I wish it was more expanded on and it was more explored on, because like if you compare to the passive tree of Path of Exile, which is basically a humongous amount of points you can put in, and still it doesn't feel like it's unbalanced. I'm pretty sure there are many ways to improve on the skill tree and on the passive tree and on the Paragon to make everything synergized and impactful. And I just wish they would explore on this matter and make the skill tree much better. Also with the passive stats, I feel like now that all the passives are leveled up automatically, and I'm talking about the character stats, obviously, like dexterity, intelligence, strength, whatever, it is also limiting your exploration on how you can build your character. If you want your barbarian to be more proficient in magic, you can't, because the stats are put in automatically, and it's always going to be strength first. And yes, it does make sense because it's a barbarian, but I would like to explore. It's an RPG, man. Like that's the thing. I want to play a role. I don't want to play a role that has been, oh, you're going to play this way because that's how it is. Almost no RPGs are made this way, and I just wish it was made different for this. Also, one other thing that I do realize could be way better, and I forgot to put it in the list, is the implementation of the seasonal and endgame activities throughout the campaign. There's so many things that are locked behind the campaign that makes the campaign a chore to do. And there's so many side activities during the endgame that would actually make sense for them to be available during the campaign. As an example, the Hell Tides. The Hell Tides are supposedly the corruption of Lilith, you know, growing from hell, taking over the world. But they start appearing only when you clear the campaign, which means that the corruption of Lilith do impact the world only after she's dead. Make that make sense. My fix for that problem would be to make the Hell Tides appear progressively through the campaign, making your travels between places a little bit more difficult. Because now, you know, she's roaming around the world, she's corrupting places and people, and now you have a Hell Tides around that are basically slowing you down and making the travels way more dangerous. Same thing with, like I said, the Nightmare Dungeons. Same thing with even the Whispers. Like when you reach the tree and you bring Elias, the tree could actually ask you right away, You're very efficient in doing those things. I've been running after this guy for so long. Are you interested in, you know, filling in some contracts for me? And now the whispers would be unlocked. Instead of waiting until the campaign is cleared, you would have access to those activities. And that would make people want to play the campaign again. Because now, since everything is locked, the difficulties are locked, the activities are locked, the endgame is locked behind the campaign. Basically, everybody's skipping it now. But I do love the campaign. The story is so good. And like I said earlier, the leveling during the campaign feels way more balanced. Everything would actually makes way more sense that they would be implemented during the campaign. It would be an incentive for people to play it again. The campaign would be way more engaging, way more fun. If you are bored with the story, you can just get sidetracked because the side quests, nobody's are doing them anymore. It's almost all the same, and the rewards are very bad. So it's like, why would we just bother doing those side quests anyways? But those side activities would become those side quests, and it's side quests that you can do over and over again to make your experience better. If you're having, example, I don't know, you're reaching towards the end of the campaign and you're having a hard time to clear that specific area, because if it's more balanced, those areas would be more challenging, right? You can just go and, oh, well, the Helltides have good rewards if I beat the boss there, so maybe I could do some Helltide runs and try to get better gear to try and do that's part of the campaign again. And it's like, there would be so many different ways of playing the campaign and you know, approaching situations that would make everything way more interesting and way more engaging, in my opinion. Another thing that is bugging me, and that's been bugging me since the beginning of the game, since the game released actually, is the timer on everything. I don't understand why we need to wait for everything to happen. Like, almost everything in the game has a timer on it. There's a timer on the portal, there's a timer on opening chests, there's a timer on picking up statues, there's a timer on dropping statues. It's like, I don't know why there's timers on everything. It's just making us wait for reasons. The other thing that is very frustrating is, example, you have enough cinders to open a chest in the Helltides, and you do have a timer to open that chest. And when you have a timer, there's a chance that you're gonna get hit by something random in the wild, and your timer is gonna be reset, and you don't open the chest. And when this happens, like at almost the end of the Helltide, and you have just a few seconds to open the chest, and you just keep getting chest canceled, and you don't open the chest, and you just lose your cinders. It is so annoying and frustrating. And I do get the excuse they gave last year, like, oh, well, we don't want you to click by accident on the chest and waste your cinders. Okay, I do understand that excuse. However, the instances of me misclicking on the chest by accident and wasting cinders wouldn't happen that often at all. And to be fair, I would much prefer wasting cinders and getting loot than not wasting cinders and getting fucking nothing. Same thing with the portals. I don't understand why there's a timer on portal. I do not understand why there's a timer on portal. Either give us scrolls again and open it, like, I don't know, instantly. There's also, like, we should be able to open the portal without actually taking the portal. Because, example, you're in a dungeon, you know that what's coming ahead could be dangerous. You open a portal as a quick escape route, and you could, you know, like, it adds to strategy. It doesn't just make the game easier. It's not about making the game easier. It's about approaching situations and approaching challenges differently. And that's why I liked Diablo 2 so much because of that. And that's why I liked Path of Exile because of that. It's just the way it is implemented makes you approaching scenarios, challenges, and events way more differently. And every single time it can change your approach. So that is also something that I wished it was not in the game at all, and I don't understand why it's there. Now for the dodging, well, the evade, right? Even to this day, I don't understand why there's a timer on it. Because to be completely fair, the effect of the evade in Diablo is so minimal that even though there wouldn't be any timers on it and you could just repeat it over and over again, wouldn't change much of the gameplay. It wouldn't, like, basically just save you out of nowhere, because when you evade, you still get damaged. So I just wish there was just no cooldown on this. because there was so many instances I just want to get out of the freaking room and it's just taking forever because I'm limited by my character speed. And if I don't have you know, like a movement skill like the teleport or with the Spiritborn, basically it's just taking forever. And even with max character speed, now that we have like passives in the skill tree with this, like I don't feel it's making a huge difference. So I just wish the evade cooldown was just not there. It wouldn't change anything. I don't know what's the excuse of putting a timer on this. I don't know if it's to limit your movement during a fight to make sure that you actually fight the monsters. People will fight the monsters anyways because we don't want to avoid them. We want to kill them to get the loot. So I don't know. It doesn't make sense. Also for mana, the energy. I know it is still it was already there in Diablo 3, and that's one of the things in Diablo 3 that I kind of like felt was weird, especially with the barbarian example. Like I want to use upheaval, and I have to strike the enemies 6 or 7 times with my basic skills just to do one, and it's just weird to me. Like it didn't really bother me at first, but the more and more I play, like how many, I don't even know how many hours I have in Diablo 4 because they don't want to, you know, give us a timer on it or whatever. I probably have like close to 3,000 hours in Diablo 4. And I do realize after playing a lot of hours in Path of Exile and Path of Exile 2, having mana potions like in Diablo 2 makes way more sense, because if you want to just go ahead and use your main skills on a horde of monsters and just go through them like over and over again, you can't do this anymore. So they want to make the game easier by giving you OP powers, but they're preventing you from using your main skill, which would actually make a difference in your power scaling. I don't know. I just feel it's weird to me. And I just wish they would add the mana potions again so we could actually just replenish our energy or our resource faster, so we don't have to actually just strike the monsters 6 times before we can actually do this. That would actually make like a huge difference to me. And I feel it could make the game much better just because of that. Also, the items and the item UI, right? The problem with the UI is that when you look up an item in your inventory, the tooltips always pops out in front of your character sheet. So not only you don't see clearly what are the numbers before and after, you can't really just do a comparison with another item, and even then it's still showing on front of your character sheet. I wish the tooltips would show up outside of your character sheet, so you would actually see your stats, your resistances, your all your stuff in real time. When you change your inventory, you see the number change instead of just trying to remember what the number was before. And I don't understand why it's still there since the beginning of the game. I feel like a tooltip of an item covering your screen is kind of weird. Not only you don't have the before and after, except for like those red numbers or whatever, and it doesn't really... It is still not really clear what it changes and how efficient it will be compared to before. And so most of the time what I end up doing is just like equipping and equipping and trying to see as fast as possible the number that changes in real time so that the tooltip actually don't show up on front of it. And to be fair, I'm completely tired of doing this, and I wish that tooltips would just show up on the side. The item rarity as well. The problem with the items for me in the game is they did mess up a lot with the drop rates. They wanted to make the game way more dopamine oriented than before, so they did change the drop rates to make this happen. However, it is way too overtuned. Basically, every time you kill stuff, there's a rain of all those items. Legendaries, uniques, like even mythics now are basically just common items. Like there is no way that those items are as rare as their name imply. And also having several levels of legendary effect on items makes the legendaries even less legendary, because you need to find several of the same one to be able to level up that specific power, right? So I will give an example, like the Dust Devils. If you find a legendary that makes your Dust Devils multiply X amount of times, when you find the item early on, it's like an early level and it's not really good, and then you need to find that specific aspect over and over again to level it up to the max tier. And I feel by doing this, it is kind of shooting yourself in the foot, because not only you need to hunt for that item so many times, it makes a legendary item basically not legendary at all. Because example, if the item was very rare, but when you find it, it was already at the max tier, like I'm gonna say max tier, like there's only one tier, not like maybe like 20 or 21, I don't remember how many, there was like maybe 12, whatever, doesn't really matter. You see what I mean? Finding the item would actually make a difference in your build, because holy shit, I found it, now I can spawn a bunch of Dust Devils. But the item is so common because you need to find so many of them to level up your tiers that basically everybody's got them. And it makes the item not legendary at all, because legendary implies that the item is of legend, which is not the case because it's common. Same thing with the uniques. Now that you have the ancestral uniques and the greater affixes uniques, you need to find them with all the affixes. It makes, yes, you're trying to fix something by improving the items in a way that makes the players to want to find the most powerful one. But the problem is, like, every single iteration of that unique is not unique anymore, because basically you need to find like 6 of them to make sure that you have the most powerful of them, and you can find them pretty easily. So the uniques are not unique, the legendaries are not of legend, and the mythics, now that you can craft them, are not mythic at all. Mythical is basically like the Loch Ness. You don't even know if it exists, right? Like, yeah, we know it doesn't exist, but you know what I mean, right? So the fact that you can craft the mythics, the fact that you can find them several times, like I did a test yesterday. I opened my stash in my Eternal Realm, and I realized that I had a stash full of mythics, and this has never happened in the whole Diablo 2 history. Like, I probably have, I don't know, maybe 10,000 hours in Diablo 2 since it released, and I don't even have a stash full of very, 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 very rare high level, uniques in the game. And that's how it should be, because those items, when they drop, you should tell yourself, holy shit, I found one, guys, I fucking got it, not to the point that it's gonna take 10 billion years to find one, but still rare enough that if you find one, it's probably going to be the only one from the season you're gonna find, right? And I never have that feeling with anything in the game anymore, because everything in the game is so easy to get and so easy to find that it's basically making the game trivial. Also, the sorting in the inventory, I feel like still, like, it is always just like sorting the items by category and not by actual power. I wish you would be able to select by what you want to sort the items, to make sure that, for example, I just want all the swords, I just want all, like, the armor, by armor, armor level, by, I don't know, like a category, like just by selecting by what you want to sort, to make sure that it's always sorted the way you want, to make your search easier, because you always know, you know what you're looking for, right? Now the power scaling, basically almost the same thing that I said about the tempering being OP and the rune words being OP. There's always a point in the game that you feel that the game is challenging, and you find something, and instead of just improving your build and improving your power, it 1,000-folds your build. You make, I don't know, like an example, you do 1,000 damage, and suddenly you find something, and now you do 1,000,000 damage. And then you find something else, and now you do 1,000,000,000 damage. And now, like, billions turns into trillions, trillions turns into infinite. It's like, it doesn't make sense. I wish the damage would be narrowed down the same way they did narrow everything. They did shrunk the numbers to make sure that the damage doesn't reach those levels, and it's still doing it. There's no way you can balance a game when you do trillions of damage, billions of damage. It doesn't make sense. If your attack power is 10,000 at the end game, I don't understand how it should be more than 10-fold. 10,000 attack damage, 100,000 damage is the maximum you can do. And obviously the health of the monsters would be reflecting on that amount of damage that you can do when it's capped, right? So there's no monster that should have, like, I don't know, like billions and billions and billions of health. So just to make sure that if you find a game-breaking build, that you can actually still don't one-shot it for some reason. The same thing with the monsters one-shotting you for no reason. They keep saying every season they fixed it, and it's still there. It's still happening. There's just like a white projectile in the corner of the screen that arrives slowly, touch you, and kill you for no reason, even though you have, like I tried Lilith when there was a bug that gives you, I don't know, I don't remember, like, billions of health, and she still managed to one-shot me at some point, like with the stacking mechanic. Stacking mechanics don't make sense. I don't know if it's still there anymore. I didn't even bother reaching the Lair bosses anymore. I don't play anymore, and that's also another thing that I feel that it's going to make the game fail if they don't fix things like at some point. They do have the vision to make the game accessible for new players and to get the most new players possible. Player retention is way more important because with player retention comes also loyalty. And with loyalty, you have referrals, right? As an example, why would I refer the game to a friend to play with me if I'm not going to play the game? Okay, there's going to be a bunch of new players. Yes, every season you sell, I don't know, like 6,000, 7,000 more copies, but those players are not going to come back next season. So they're not going to invest in the battle pass, they're not going to invest in the shop or whatever, and that's going to, you know, bring me to my last point, which is I call it the shop harassment. We already paid you for the whole game. We already paid for the DLC, most of us. And still, every time I log in, I have a splash screen trying to funnel me to the shop. To be fair, shut the fuck up. Are you serious? Are you kidding me? We already gave you, like, with the DLC, like, around, like, for me, it's going to be, like, 220 Canadian dollars. You want even more money? Like, all those transmogs that you're selling, why are they not in the game as set items? You said early on, like 2 years ago, I do remember, you said that the set items are coming. We are 2 years later. They are not in the game. There is no set items. The only set items that we have are paid cosmetics. Why are not all those great transmogs and great skins set items straight in the game? That is also a problem with the player retention, because that is not making me want to pay for your shit. It is not making me want to pay for the next DLC. It is not making me want to stay as a player. I don't want to defend this. Deep down, I am a veteran player. So I've been playing Diablo for the past 30 years. My Diablo adventure started with Diablo 1. I played every single Diablo since. Even Diablo Immortal, I did play it. I never felt that betrayed, not listened to. And I also feel that the trust in the franchise is gone. Basically, every OG developers that did work on previous entries are gone. You know, I don't even know, like, maybe there is some, but I don't even know if there's even developers in your team that did even develop Diablo 3. I don't even know if there's still any of them that are left. Most of your team are new developers that never worked on any ARPGs in the past. And that shouldn't be a big issue if the developing team was actually listening to the player base. They say they do, but at the same time, they are not. And they're always finding excuses and telling people like, oh, it's not what players want. Players want the easy way. Players want to like either all or nothing. It's like, that's not true. We want a sense of progression. We want a sense of accomplishment. We want to have a purpose to do this stuff. We don't want the mindless brain rot runs that only brings us XP and items over and over again. Because it's not a good experience. It's just like, okay. And when you have access to something all the time, at all times, in substantial amount, you end up not giving a shit anymore at some point. And that's how I feel about the game. And that's how I feel about everything that I just told you, everything I just, you know, laid down in the video. I just wish they would listen. I just wish that someone would listen to that video and share this with them or whatever. You know, that's pretty much everything I had to say about the game. So now it's a point that if you enjoyed what I said, I would invite you to just like and subscribe. And also, you can follow me on Twitch. You can follow my music channel. All the links are in the description if you are interested. Yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say.